the San Antonio Spurs. And look, yes, 90% of this is Victor Wembanyama. 90% is Victor trying to figure out what he can be. What is he capable of becoming? What is he going to be in his second season, right? We just saw him go toe-to-toe with Team USA at the Olympics in the gold medal match. The level that he was at late in his rookie season was pretty staggering, frankly. He was pretty obviously a top 20 player in the league already. If you wanted to go higher than that, like I would hear out a case for it, but I feel quite strongly he's going to be all NBA quality this year. What does that mean? If I told you Victor Wembanyama was going to be an all NBA player this year, what do you think that means for San Antonio as a team overall?
I mean, I think for him to be all NBA, how many games did they win last year?
They won somewhere in the I would have guessed like high 20s, right?
Spurs won 22.
22.
If they win 35 games, I think that's enough to get him on all NBA, assuming the individual performances that we're talking about, right? Like mid 20s scoring, double digit rebounds, over 3 blocks, defensive player of the year type stuff. Like if they win 30 games, will people give him all NBA if they only quote unquote make an 8-win improvement?
I think it's possible. I don't know is kind of the answer I have.
think
on
35,
totally
35 is close enough to 500 and a big enough jump that I think people would then be able to. Maybe even like 32, like a 10-win jump, and he just plays out of his mind like we're talking about. I think that could get him all NBA. I think they got to get it 32 to 35.
Here's what I would say. Over their last 22 games last year, the Spurs went 10-12, right? Okay. That's not like a terrible team. And in that time, they beat some pretty decent teams, right? Like they beat Oklahoma City, they beat Indiana, they beat Phoenix, they beat the Knicks, they beat the Pelicans, they beat Denver late in the season, right? So I'm not going to rule out that once we saw Victor take that like big leap, that could be closer to their level than what people think. I just wonder if it might be a little bit more consistent night in, night out because of some of the other guys.
Yeah. So, and over those 22 games, he averaged, 23 and a half on 46, 33, 77, 12 rebounds, 5.3 assists, and 6 stocks, 1.5 steals, and 4.5 blocks.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
That sounds like a potentially all NBA player.
That's pretty solid in my opinion. But beyond Victor, right?
Yeah.
I am interested to see what the rest of this team looks like. What does Chris Paul have left?
Exactly.
Does Devin Vassell take a leap? Does Keldon Johnson, I think Keldon Johnson kind of is what he is at this point, but can Keldon Johnson, like now that he has, Chris Paul in the starting lineup in all likelihood, it seems like, with Trey Jones off the bench, probably next to Keldon Johnson coming off the bench, right? Does that lead to him being like one of the best sixth men in the league? Like, I think that's like a real possibility for Keldon Johnson, right?
Wait, what's your starting lineup? CP3, Vassell.
Yep.
Barnes, Sohan, and Victor?
That was my guess, but that is what that is, right? Okay. That is a guess. And then your backups are Trey Jones, Steph Castle, Keldon Johnson, Zach Collins. And then like whatever of the
Branham,
Wesley. Yeah. Like those guys.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yep.
And look, I say that the reason I say that my guess is that it's Sohan over Keldon Johnson is that Sohan started 74 games last year or 73 games last year, and Keldon Johnson started 27. So I'm kind of assuming that Sohan, is their guy that they will start.
Yeah. No, I'm with you there. Yeah, I think this team is interesting even outside of that. Like, would they be on this list if Victor wasn't on it? No, like obviously not.
Absolutely not.
But Chris Paul at 39, what is here's the thing that's interesting about it's not just Chris Paul, but also is he this stabilizing point guard that we were all begging for last year to give this team so we felt like we could really evaluate specifically Victor, but the team in general. And then you do have a 24-year-old Vassell, 25-year-old Keldon Johnson. Steph Castle is a guy you were really high on this last draft. I wasn't quite as high, but still a top 5 guy for me. And so you theoretically, I think maybe even more than but you have enough vets and a star around those guys. You can see like what is Devin Vassell like. There's a quote: can Devin Vassell be the number 2 guy to Victor? Is he the number 3 guy? Is he even that high? You're like, what is the answer there? Does Sohan even work with Victor, Sam? Like, is this a guy? Can you play these 2 guys together, or does his lack of shooting take away everything that Victor does offensively, like all the space he needs to work with? Can you play crazy big, or do you not be able? Like, I just think there's all those things you can figure out, and by having guys like Barnes and CP3 and Tyus Jones, you have enough of the vets to get those answers with real NBA level rotation and competitiveness.
Yeah, I think that's dead on. And look, like last year, the Spurs started 3-17 when they did like the bullshit Jeremy Sohan at point guard stuff. And then they had Zach Collins, like still starting with Victor. If you take away those 3-17 numbers, right, they are 19-43, which is still not an awesome record, right? Nobody's saying it is, but they were much more competitive and much better in that time, right? Like they were very, very good in Victor's minutes, right? So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I think this team's going to be like some incredible basketball team this year. I probably don't even think they're going to make the play-in tournament, if I'm being honest. I think there are enough teams in the West outside of them that are really great that will still be ahead of them. Like Harrison Barnes couldn't move his feet on defense last year. Just let's be transparent and realistic about it. But tying him to Jeremy Sohan and tying him to, different solid defensive players, having Victor Wembanyama behind Harrison Barnes versus Domantas Sabonis is a little bit of a different thing for Barnes, right? Yeah. And Barnes is smart enough to at least angle guys into like different positions where they will be disadvantaged on offense, right? Again, I don't think this team's going to be like great by any stretch of the imagination. They are going to be exciting to watch because they have Victor Wembanyama, and they are going to be interesting to watch because they have a number of kids like Vassell, like Steph Castle, like who am I missing here off the top of my head? Jeremy Sohan for sure. See, like I guess I wasn't even like considering Keldon because Keldon's like 25 at this point, but like Sohan to me is so interesting still.
Sure. Yeah.
If he ever shoots it, he's like an incredible basketball player.
Yeah.
Asking him to shoot might be silly. Honestly, like might be very silly, but I don't know. He took 3 threes a game last year and shot 31%. And it's a significant improvement on the year before, which was a significant improvement on the year before when he was at Baylor and like didn't look like he was ever going to shoot it. So I don't know. I like this San Antonio team. I think that, having the Sohan and Wembanyama combination on defense is probably going to lead to a top 10 defense for them, right? They were 22nd in defense last year, but if you look at kind of what their, arrow was over the course of the year, it got way better, especially once they moved Wembanyama to the center position. So maybe it's like a top 13 defense.
Sam,
like
it was an awful start for the season. Like their start to the season isn't remembered because of what the Pistons did, but during the Pistons' historic losing streak, San Antonio lost 18 straight and 28 of 30 after I think they started out 2-1 or something like that. So it was just a dreadful start. And then, then it was competent basketball there late, as you mentioned at the top.
Yeah. Like it was a truly, really, really bad, really, really bad time for San Antonio early on, but they were 11th in defense in March. They were, what were they? They were, I'm looking up the numbers, 20th in defense in February. And then in April, they were, what were they in defensive rating? Third in defense in April. So, you kind of average that out. They were like a borderline top 10 defense over the last 3 months of the season. So, I don't know. Like, I'm just saying that I think this Spurs team is going to be exciting to watch. I don't think they're going to be a great basketball team. I think they're going to be a really, really exciting team to watch, though, because there's a chance Victor averages like 26, 13, and 4 blocks and 2 steals and takes a leap as a passer and, plays basketball in a way that we've like never really seen before.